President Trump working with Democrats on several items on his agenda. Our next guest says he's picking popularity over populists. That's a lot of P's. Fox News politics editor Chris Stirewalt here to explain. Chris, all right, let's start right there. Explain what you mean by that.
Well, look, when we think of populism in the United States, we're talking about the idea of giving the people what they want, usually. But populism, especially as it is connected to the Trump brand of nationalism, this means something very particular, and the molten core, the lava at the center of this that really drove a lot of Trump's success, of course, was the strong antipathy from a lot of blue-collar, working-class Americans, especially in the heartland, on the issue of uncontrolled immigration, on the issue of illegal immigration, amnesty for those here. Trump very successfully exploited that. But as he moves forward in a governing phase, there's just not a lot of appetite for that. The most 70% probably you could put together that favors, among Democrats and a lot of Republicans, that favor some pathway to citizenship, some way forward so that we can sort of do enforcement, yes, but get past the current moment on this, and his base doesn't agree.
Next one for you, Chris. President Obama getting paid big for Wall Street speeches. Oh, the irony. He just spoke at the Carlyle Group Investor Conference, and he's set to give another speech at Cantor Fitzgerald Conference later this month. He's really on the circuit. Price tag for that one, by the way, $400,000. If they're going to give it to you, why not take it? But, Chris, do you remember when the President Obama at the time said this? Take a listen.
I want to be clear. We're not trying to push financial reform because we begrudge success that's fairly earned. I mean, I do think at a certain point you've made enough money.
Well, apparently he hasn't reached that point. $400,000 a speech. What do you think of that, Chris?
It's low.
Yeah.
I would say I think Ronald Reagan got $2 million, and that was in 1989 or 1990 dollars for his first post-presidential speech. Gave it in Japan. $400K. So the question for Obama, basically, for him and his post-presidency, he is deviating from the norm of his predecessors, a model established by George Washington, which was you retire from public life. After you serve as president, you retire from public life. When you leave the presidency, you don't just say, okay, I'm not going to, I've had my 2 terms, I'm done. You retire fully, the American Cincinnatus. You leave and go home, and you're not part of the public discourse anymore.
Right.
Obama's changed that, and now if he's going to be raking in these relatively small, for a former president, seemingly, speaking fees to do these things and do them in Wall Street, that complicates his message, and it also lets us know he's going to be pushing political discussion out there the whole time. So this is a whole new model.
Couple of months, and that's what, $800,000. It's over $8 million a year. It's nearly $9 million a year. Not to be sniffed at. By the way, Chris, we just got this statement from President Obama's spokesperson, Kevin Lewis, saying, since leaving office, President Obama has spent his time doing public and private events, both paid and unpaid, that are true to his values and his record. Consistent with that, his paid speeches, in part, have allowed President Obama to contribute $2 million to Chicago programs offering job training and employment opportunities to low-income youth. So apparently, some of the money, at least, is going in that direction. Come in, Herb London, very quickly. What's your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction is that the president obviously should be making larger charitable contributions, in my judgment. You may recall that when he was a senator operating out of Illinois, his financial contributions to charities was less than mine, and I earned maybe a tenth of the salary that he had. Obviously, he was not particularly generous at that time. I think that the president should remember the Harry Truman model. Keep the car running. I'm going to leave the White House. We're driving to Missouri, and you don't have to worry about Harry Truman any longer. That's the right stance for a president.
So, Chris, apparently the car is running, but it's just going to the next page speech. But we did get that statement saying, yes, but a lot of money is being funneled into programs that needed in Chicago. What's your reaction to the statement?
Look, liberal Democrats have already long begrudged Obama's connections to Wall Street because he ran against Wall Street and then made ties and close friends and close connections in that same world. But as Willie Sutton said, that's where the money is. And for an American political life, the amount of money that is in the financial sector, you can't overlook it, and you have to factor it into your decisions. So Obama made them grouchy before. But I would say this. He is to be credited, no matter what anyone's political view is. He needs to be credited for making a serious investment in Chicago. He could have chosen, I would have picked Hawaii for my presidential library. I would have said Chicago is cold in the winter and is violent and a lot of bad neighborhoods. I'm going to be at the University of Hawaii. He's chosen to make a commitment to Chicago. He's chosen to put some of his money where his mouth is, so that's probably a creditable thing.
That is a fair point to make. Chris Stirewalt, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
You bet.
Appreciate it.